Hello, Stress Party, and today I'm going to be doing a Structure Deck Freezing Chains box opening. Okay, now that I've opened the top, let's see what's inside. It's hard to do this with one hand. Okay. First up, we got the paper play mat thing. Probably looks cool, but doesn't really matter. But what we're actually here for is the cards themselves, starting off with Revealer of the Ice Barrier. Now that the plastic's off, got Revealer. This is the best new Ice Barrier card in the main deck because it basically searches any tuner from deck by discarding one card. It water locks you, but this is the consistency booster you're going to need. Speaker for the Ice Barrier, excellent extender. You can special summon if you control another Ice Barrier. When it leaves the field or it's in the graveyard and you control an Ice Barrier, you can make a level 1 token. Yugioh of the Ice Barrier, it's okay. You contribute it to special summon a level 5 or higher Ice Barrier monster from your hand, and if it's in the graveyard after the turn it's sent there, you can target a level 3 or higher, reduce its level, and then special discard, but then banish it. Wins over the Ice Barrier. Tribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters on your side of the field and special summon from your deck that many Ice Barrier monsters with different names from each other. And then turn after, you can banish it from your graveyard and recur a Ice Barrier from a graveyard banish pile to your hand. Trishula's Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Now this card is really cool as well. When synchro summon, you can banish up to 3 cards your opponent has, and if this card is taken out by an opponent's card by destruction, you can special summon a regular Trish from your extra deck or graveyard, and its attack becomes 3,300, and then half the attack, and negate the effects of all monsters on your opponent's side of the field. Delworn, I think this one, this is the eroded version, so now its effect is a hard once per turn, because before it could be looped. We have Brionac, also a card that has been eroded to have a hard once per turn effect on it. Gungnir doesn't have any erratas on it, and then we have common, no, that's not common, that's actually super rare. Super rare Trish, great card. General Wayne of the Ice Barrier, this is one of the new ones, it's okay. If you control an Ice Barrier and your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card, and with its normal special to add an Ice Barrier spell or trap from hand. There's really only a few good targets for that, though. There's Winds, which is pretty nice. There's Hexa, Spirit of the Ice Barrier. It's super cute. And it lets you Foolish a level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your deck. There's some interesting setups that can be done with this to make totally awesome. Blizzed, Defender of the Ice Barrier. And when it's destroyed, draw a card. Not very good. Cryomancer of the Ice Barrier. It's a tuner, and it's level 2, and there's some weird setups that you can do that involve this card that doesn't really have to do with its effect. But its effect sometimes comes up. When you control another Ice Barrier level 4 or more, they can't declare an attack. Prior of the Ice Barrier, aka Toad Setup, the monster. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then you can't special summon level 5 or higher monsters this turn, which means if you're going to be going into Lynx or Xyz, you're still fine. You can also tribute this card and then special summon an Ice Barrier, except it from your graveyard. Defender of the Ice Barrier, it's a level 3, and also has a similar attack, prevention, gravity bind type effect, where if you control another Ice Barrier monster, and then your opponents can attack if the attack's greater than this card's defense. Warlock of the Ice Barrier. This one is like a really weird like anti-spell fragrance Ice Barrier monster, so if that comes up in the format, maybe it'll be good. Spellbreaker of the Ice Barrier. This card that's a little weird. It says once per turn you can send an Ice Barrier monster from your hand to the graveyard, neither player can activate spells until the end of your next turn while this card's on the field. So this actually seems like it could be really good in certain matchups, but I don't know what those matchups would be right now, because it does. If like Sky Striker was a thing again, that would be excellent. Strategist of the Ice Barrier. Once per turn, you can send an Ice Barrier monster from your hand to the graveyard and draw 1 card. I guess it's decent. Dance Priestess of the Ice Barrier. Reveal any number of Ice Barrier monsters. Then bounce cards on your opponent's side of the field that are spell and traps. Up to the number of cards revealed. When this card is normal if summoned, Ice barriers can't be destroyed by spell and trap effects. Not very good. This one's a pretty neat one, which says when your opponent monster activates an effect on field, resolves, they have to discard a card or their effect's negated. It's just a bit obnoxious to get on the field because it's 6 stars. Medium of the Ice Barrier, if your opponent controls 4 or more cards than you, you can special summon from your hand and they can only activate 1 spell or card each turn. So, wait for your opponent's combo off, put this on the field. But I would guess it'd only be good if your opponent was making a lot of spell and traps. Once per turn, you can target 1 Ice Barrier monster, special summon. It's not very good. Another one, during your main phase, you can special summon, or you can normal summon 1 Ice Barrier addition to your normal summoner set. Again, not very good. Gen X Controller. That's actually pretty cool. And Gen X Undine. This card is great. It's a normal summon Foolish Burial for water monsters, and then you add a Gen X Controller from deck to hand. That's an awesome include. This is a generic water extender, banish 1 from graveyard, summon it. Dupe Frog, great frog card. Ronin Totem, great frog card. Now if only they'd put Totally Awesome in this deck. Fishborg Launcher, that's an amazing include. It lets you special summon this card from your graveyard if all cards in your graveyard are just waters. Molten Glacia, the Elemental Lord. Very good water card. If you have 5, you get to hand loop your opponent for 2 after you special summon it. Silent Angler, if you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, but you can't special summon from your hand for the rest of the turn. I mean, that seems like a decent extender. This is another one of the new ones, Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. It's basically World Legacy Guard Dragon, but for Ice Barrier monsters. It also has a protection effect that only applies to monster special summon from the extra deck if you control 3 or more Ice Barriers, but that doesn't really come up that much. Magic Triangle of the Ice Barriers. Reveal 3 different Ice Barrier names in your hand, then target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it, and then special summon an Ice Barrier monster from your hand. I mean, if you can set up that much. But here's the card that would allow for that setup. Medallion of the Ice Barrier. A non-once per turn searcher that just adds an Ice Barrier monster from deck to hand. Mirror of the Ice Barrier. This one requires you to have stuff banished from hand. So if you like Trish someone... Actually, no, it says banished from your hand by your opponent. Then you can banish 2 random cards from your opponent's hand, banish 2 cards from your opponent controls. So if your opponent Trishes you, you do this to them instead. You have Salvage, basically just a graveyard recursion. Surface, okay. It's a weird form of Monster Reborn, but it's not once per turn, so that's pretty good. Wherefore Art Thou, basically a searcher for level 1 monsters. Appointed of the Red Lotus, a really neat card. Pay 2,000, look at your opponent's hand, and then banish 1 card. But you have to reveal your hand, but pay 2,000 life points. Venus Chain. This card used to be great, but it's still pretty okay. But you have Phantom Knights of Flogblade, which is just a searchable and more better version of this. If you're playing Phantom Knights, of course. Ishban. That seems weird. Mind Drain. I think I've heard this card. Activate by pay 1,000 life points. Neither player can activate effects of monsters in hand. That's a neat floodgate for very specific formats. Heavy Storm Duster, an amazing back row removal piece. Crackdown in common. This is a great card and it's just a great generic piece of taking cards from your opponent. And finally, Terror of Trishula. Activate these effects based on the number of Ice Barrier names you have. So 1, banish a card your opponent controls. 2, banish a card from your opponent's graveyard. 3, banish a card from your opponent's hand. Then when your opponent activates the effect that targets an Ice Barrier Synchro, you can banish this card from your graveyard to negate that effect. Neat. Oh, and there's the Duel Links code thing, but I hope you enjoyed this unboxing, and if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, and hope you have an excellent day.